I made the documentary. It took me like a year to make. And I don't know if you ended up seeing it on your own or anything, but when I made it, I spoke like quite positively of Dr. K, because especially since at that time I really didn't have a reason to question what was going on so much. But it was only later in the summer, after everything happened, that I started to think like maybe I didn't have it right in the first place.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this documentary, and yeah, I didn't think too much about Dr. K maybe at the time. Well, I thought it was. I mean, I thought that I don't know what I thought. I really liked the documentary, and I'm happy to speak with you. I didn't
Thank
realize
you.
it was you, to be honest. But yeah, it was great. It was Thank you for doing that.
My
And
pleasure.
about Dr. K, I at the time, well, I mean, I thought like some of his reactions were a little strange. Just like it didn't seem natural to me. But I spoke to him after. I don't want to jump ahead of your questions.
That's fine.
But yeah, I said on Twitter, like, hey, I want to talk to this guy, and people connected me. And there wasn't anything that uh, important on the call, except that, I mean, it was strange that he said that he didn't want to talk too much more about it because it's hard for him,
Hmm.
which I thought was kind of weird. I mean,
Yeah,
okay,
you're his
he's
brother.
a Yeah, I mean, he's a psychologist. He can't talk about things that are hard for him. But there was another explanation, I guess, that Jenna was saying, or someone was saying. I think maybe Jenna. She was just over here recently for my mom's birthday, and she was saying that he said he couldn't talk to her for like legal reasons or something. And then, of course, that's like the weird thing because it's kind of an obvious like loophole that he's saying. Well, he's not a therapy. It's not therapy, but obviously it's very much like therapy. I've been to therapy, and that's what therapy is like. I mean, the counselor asks you. It's not like too much. Probably, it's like
Hmm.
they ask you questions. You talk about yourself, and in this case, talk about yourself on in front of thousands of people and expose all kinds of private things and have all these kind of emotional revelations and epiphanies or whatever that could be good, and then on the other hand they maybe not, and then you're later on maybe not happy about what you said or didn't say, and these are very private things, and someone that's having trouble socially or mentally, emotionally, then you're exposing all these private things, and then later maybe you're happy about that or not happy about
Hmm.
that. And one other thing that I was concerned about was, well, after uh, Byron passed, then um, and I was talking to Jenna, and she was saying that Byron said, "Yeah, even Dr. K isn't talking to me, or or didn't respond to me, or something." Dr. K said that he tried to reach Byron once or twice or something in May, and he wouldn't respond. And I don't know if that's true or not. I don't see his phone number in Byron's messages, but maybe they spoke in Discord.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I could see him reaching out. Byron didn't respond to me either. I regret not FaceTiming him. I would always send him things in WhatsApp, and he never responded to me for a long time. Sometimes he would, but barely ever. But then we had this nice phone conversation, or on FaceTime, when he was in his apartment, and Talbot was there. And it was just a great. I'm so happy we had that conversation because we had fought a little bit before that. I mean, we always had, actually. You said we didn't have a good relationship. I mean, we would fight sometimes, but I I mean, I was like his, not like his dad, but well, my dad was a little out of it for growing up because of what happened to my older brother, Guy. I'm only 10 years older than Byron, but I mean, I was his brother, not his dad, definitely. But I mean, I was always pretty close to him in a way. I took Byron to college with me even when he was 10 years old, 10 or 11. And we lived in Santa Barbara, went to UCSB at off State Street, so not in like the crazy, wasn't when we were living at near the beach where it's more like a party place, but more in the city and State Street. And it was fun. And he got to know my flatmates and they all loved him. And he was playing Asheron's Call at the time, but you know, we would go walk down a Fat Burger and stuff and have those milkshake and whatever. And he would just had it's like, I remember he loved that so much. He really loved food. And then, yeah, we do that like almost every day. And that was a summer. And I would sit by him while we were playing Asheron's Call. We'd play side by side, and we would see we saw Rurouni Kenshin together, like the whole series. And we saw like all of Dragon Ball Z together. And I wish I would have had more time to spend with him. I never like to call people, like interrupt them, kind of, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't just call him out of the blue on FaceTime. I should have. I would ping him, you know, on WhatsApp, and he didn't respond too much. Anyway, so Dr. K said he tried to reach him, but I don't know that that's true. I haven't gone in his Discord. I don't know if I can. I can't access certain things because his phone was probably with him, and I don't have access to that.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see the iMessages, and I didn't see that he. Yeah, I mean, I think that certain things are a little strange. Like, I don't know, it's different, I guess. But yeah, I saw Dr. K was very emotional one of the days, but I don't know.
Well, let's start with something very basic, which is like, do you think that the talks that Dr. K did with Byron, do you think that any of those talks did any good? Like, do you think there was any help that Dr. K provided?
Yeah, what I saw was it seemed like it could be good. I mean, he got him to sort of have these moments of, I guess, realizations of you know, some deep aspects of what he's feeling. So, and Byron really enjoyed, you know, looked like he really enjoyed and really admired him. And so I don't think it was anything necessarily bad about the talks, although I didn't catch this part, but I think one thing that was like kind of concern, I guess. Jenna also, I think, mentioned it, is he said like after the game, you know, you could die.
Yeah, he said you can die when you finish the game, like that exact sentence.
Right. I think I remember. Like I actually should have looked over. Maybe I should do it again, but I should look over the talks again. I kind of it's hard for me to watch them, so I didn't watch them again. But maybe I should have instead before the interview. But I remember seeing that, and I thought at the time, I mean, I thought he tried to say it as like,
you have some reason to live.
Yeah, but the fact that he's saying that, I mean, obviously he should have known that he was suicidal, right? And that comes down to the crux of the matter: is that how you treat someone who's suicidal? You get on a stream, you say it's not therapy, through a loophole and so on. Now, maybe that loophole is good in a way because he needs therapy, and that's the way to provide it. You can say. But it was certainly a way to get around that, obviously, and then, you know, and to not follow up in a normal way, I guess, you know. I think also when you have therapist, you come in, I don't know, I only went like very casually, like 2 times, but yeah, if you have twice a week, then they can monitor you better. If you have once a week, or once a week, I think is probably normal. I don't know if you're in a. So then they, you know, but they didn't. I don't think they had, you know, anything nearly as formal or as regular as that. So and yeah, I guess you open up a can of worms, and then you just or you open up, Pandora's box or whatever, and then you just kind of leave. And there's two ways I was thinking about the issue with with the stream. Like, okay, on the one hand, I mean, obviously, he wants to get viewers from people's streams, from Byron's stream, and then after he gets them, he sort of moves on to the next one. And you can look at it in two ways. One is a little problematic, and one is worse. I mean, the good way to look at it is, okay, well, he's trying to like AOE, fix people, and so he needs to get to as many people as possible. And then, of course, there's a more like cynical way of looking at it is, okay, he's gotten everyone's stream there, and now let's move on, get more people stream, and get his channel bigger. So there is that feeling, definitely, or that perception. I'm not saying one way or another, but I don't know. But there's that perception is like problematic, and especially in that maybe for some people it's okay, like it's just like helps them with anxiety, some basic things. But he's a trained, psychologist, and he should know. He did know from that line. It shows that he understood he's suicidal, and he didn't. It didn't seem like he escalated it in too much in any way, and we see the results.
That's the point that you brought up there about that he's a trained psychiatrist. What do you think are the implications of the fact that he is a trained psychiatrist when he was talking anyone or with Byron? What does that mean to you, that the fact that he's a trained psychiatrist? What does it make you think?
Well, I mean, I think that he should know what, he should be able to identify suicidal people, and he should know what the risks are, and now especially with the lockdowns, and that should be, there's possibly something that they need to do to escalate it. On the other hand, I'm not sure that that's, maybe if he was in therapy, like formal therapy, then he would need to do, I don't know what maybe you've looked into it, what the next step is that he might do. But it definitely didn't seem like very, formal. They spoke, how regularly did they speak? Like how often, how many times did they have those
They
things?
did like 5 or 6 videos, and then after the second discussion, I remember he said that, he said something like, okay, so like the problems we're dealing with are much more longitudinal, so I'm gonna need to see you off stream once a week.
Okay.
So I don't really know, like I have no idea what happened with those sessions, if they happened, and so.
Yeah, I don't think that they did too much off stream. I asked Dr. K about that. I don't remember exactly what he said, but I guess he didn't do too much. Oh, I think he said, I can either be your friend or be your counselor or something like that. And I think Byron just said he didn't want to do the. To be honest, I don't remember. But yeah, so I'm not sure. What do you think? I'm you're interviewing me, but what do you think that should have been done? Trained psychiatrist.
Well, I don't know what could have been done. That's the thing that what I find this so difficult to navigate is that I think that like when I sit there and I listen to those talks, I really like a lot of what I'm hearing. Like it all makes a lot of sense, and I like a lot of the sort of stuff he points out in a general sort of sense. I like these things, right? But then in the context of you're talking to someone who has been suicidal and like has not escaped like that quite yet, then some of the things start to get sort of concerning, like what you brought up where he says you can die, or we discussed this before the interview, but bringing up reincarnation.
Yeah,
I thought that was pretty negligent or like reckless, to no pun intended, but like I just thought that it was like you have someone that has just like told you about like they've attempted suicide, and like you can see that they're not over like these emotional traumas, and you're telling them about like, why are you telling them about reincarnation now? You know, maybe
Exactly.
later when someone is no longer in this state, you can move on to like the more spiritual stuff, because I like that stuff. I think it's really cool. But I also think that like it's like it's like the last thing you work on. It's like self-improvement first, then spiritual need. You know?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I didn't realize it was. I mean, it's kind of an obvious point, which makes it all the more reason for a trained psychiatrist to know that maybe I don't know if there's statistics on it, but I just think I also thought that a lot of the points are really interesting, and for somebody who's stable, is like, oh wow, that's really cool. But when you open, and I like the concepts of Buddhism as well. But when you open up the idea that, oh, it's fine to kill yourself, or I guess in Christianity and in Judaism, you're not supposed to, and maybe it's silly that you have God's laws or whatever. I'll say what you will, but on the other hand, it's like keeps people in a framework a little more. Whereas there, it's like, oh, you have there's nothing against that. I don't know if there is or isn't, but there's another life afterwards, possibly, and many more, infinite more, and it's kind of like, oh, let's re-roll, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
He kind of even said, Byron said it, I think, something like that towards the like one of his last streams, right?
yeah, exactly. Towards like the last stream, he said something about he's looking out the window. It was
Yeah.
obviously he's giving a foreshadow to whoever like the next day,
Mm-hmm.
and then he's looking out the window, and he says, maybe there's something afterlife, and also I think the shrooms can be helpful, but it also, I think it's more the Buddhism and the reincarnation, but also together with the shrooms, you kind of, for example, take me, like I'm very scientific, and I never necessarily believed in too much, but with the shrooms that I've tried, like you do get a connection. You get this feeling that you're connected to everyone in the world and all that, and it's nice. And I don't know if that's a revelation or if it's an imagination, but you have a little bit of a dissociative effect that's nice in a way that disconnects you from ego and all this nice stuff.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it kind of connects you to, oh, there's like this other energy, something, and it's just very much together with like the reincarnation concept. You're like, oh, we really don't know anything. And yeah, it feels like you kind of feel like your body is like something else, like disconnected from you. And it much more opens you up to the possibility that there's something after, which is nice, but not in the case that you're suicidal.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I sort of,
And
I'm sorry, you go on.
no, you go on.
I was just gonna say that I interpreted like Dr. K talking about this stuff. So I talked about it. I think it was in the first talk he did with Byron that he mentioned most of that stuff. And to me, it sort of just came across as like he just wanted to like he really loves yoga and meditation and wanted to sort of like spread those concepts simply because he loves them, and like couldn't contain himself, see that it was inappropriate, even though
Right.
he is a trained psychiatrist.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. That now, and I mean, I don't know what the statistics are on it, but it seems kind of obvious that those things would not go well hand in hand.
Yeah,
If
totally agree.
so, yeah, I mean, I started answering things before you had some questions you wanted to ask.
Well, we've actually just kind of been jumping around all the questions that I've written down, but that's totally fine. I prefer the conversational style to like some kind of news interview anyway. But staying on the psychiatrist thing, what do you think, Dr. K being a trained psychiatrist, how do you think that the people he's talking to and Byron are perceiving their conversations with him, knowing that he is a trained psychiatrist? And how do you
Right.
think that
I mean,
affects things?
that I guess that, yeah, that can cause a lot of other problems, right? Because first of all, touching still on the same reincarnation thing, it's like, oh, this is, they can perceive like, oh, that's the proper thing to think about now, like, oh, wow, he's saying it, and that makes so much sense, and there's reincarnation possibly, and that's like a normal thing that I should be thinking about now, and that can just reinforce what we just said about it opens up the potential to thinking about suicide because it's a reroll and you'll still it's not the end. That's one thing, and then yeah, I mean, just obviously, yeah, just the authority of that, and then also if he doesn't feel better after all this, then he's really messed up. And I don't remember. I'm sure. Well, I would think Dr. K mentioned it, but I don't remember him saying it. What did he say about the lockdowns? Did Dr. K say, "Oh, you feel a little worse now because you have," I don't know if he mentioned this so much because Byron had financial problems too because of the game. He was spending like enormous amounts of money every month on the game, and he was before that he was well off. He didn't have any. I've done business stuff. Like it can be very, very. They say business is a spiritual game. Like it's very draining. You're like going through fire. Like it's a roller coaster, very harsh. Like you can be up and then down. Like and then you owe money. You have people that depend on you for their jobs, and then now you have to tell them to go home because you're out of cash. And from before, he was like well off and free to do whatever the hell he wanted to do. All of a sudden, he's like run out of money basically. And now he also and with the relationship stuff and with lockdowns, he can't even go out and enjoy the shroom walk because there's nowhere to go and it's all hot. He can't like really travel anywhere. And then his friends are gone because also lockdown stuff. They're gone to their family and they're not there and all that. And he's lonely. And suicides were up like 25% in youth because of the lockdowns in July and in June. And what I think Dr. K should have focused on, I don't remember if him doing that, is saying it's a temporary thing. You'll get by it. You remember all those great, because when I see Byron on the stream, I was always like, wow, he's having such an amazing time. He just needs to go travel. I was like, I wanted to come to Austin, but I thought like he didn't want me to come there or something. And like he had an extra floor, and I didn't want him to feel like I want to come stay with him, like whereas if he's trying to rent it or not. I didn't understand what he's trying, but he didn't. I didn't really get that. But I wanted to like come and take him somewhere because whenever he's traveling, he seemed like he was having a great time with his friends. People know him everywhere he goes. He's just on the stream, and people like come down the street because they know he's there. And I mean, it's almost like hard to have a bad time, that bad of a time. I mean, I know people can be stuck in their head, but I could tell when he was pretending to be, happier than he was. You could see in people's eyes, but I mean, you had that genuine laugh when he's really, and later he would just forget about that, and that's typical. Like people with, I'm like manic depressive or these highs and lows. I know about it all too well, and they just don't remember that they had a great time before and everything was great. They just think that wasn't really me. The real me is depressed. And then later on, they'll think that the depressed them is not really them. Mm. And I think that Dr. K could have been a lot. Yeah, I think it would be maybe more helpful for a trained psychiatrist with authority to remind him of those things. And Byron really like trusted him because he was so much more natural speaking. Also, he played games and he would add in these like sort of phrases from games. And the psychiatrists and psychologists he had before were just so awful that compared to them, he thought like, oh, he's like the second coming or whatever. And because of that, then yeah, he overvalued what he heard, and we see the results. I'm not saying it could have been different, but I think that he should have focused more on you'll get through this. You just don't remember. This is typical. You don't remember how it felt. Here's what you'll go through this stage and this stage, and now there's lockdowns. So now you feel like this, and this. But you notice you do feel that, right? And you could, oh yes, I do feel that. And then, I mean, you could have walked him through it a lot of different ways. And the authority that he had as a psychiatrist to be speaking so much about Buddhism and reincarnation all the time, he totally was pushing it because it's like a religious, it's like a Jesus freak, right? It's like and people get mad when you're like pushing Christianity or whatever on people. Well, they don't get mad if you're pushing Buddhism on them because it's not the dominant culture or whatever. It's like a alternative here in the US, so whatever. But if you look at it from that perspective, you'd say, why was he proselytizing his religion on him instead of handling his psychological condition in ways that are logical and make sense into some. That being said, there were a lot of things that he uncut. He did a great job, I think, getting him to feel emotional and have these kind of emotional releases. I think he did great doing that. But the build-up after that, I think, it relied on he's going to do this game and then he can die, and that's a weird thing. Well, I felt like when I heard that, he was trying to get him to say, don't, you have things to live for now. And later on, it's like later on we'll deal with that kind of.
Right.
When he's not done with the game yet. So keep the game, as something, I guess. So I felt that was that had a positive light to it too. That no, you can't do anything. You can't, die yet. You have to do this game. At the same time, of course, it revealed that how much he realized that he was suicidal. But right. How did you feel about that he was using that as a like light at the end of the tunnel to keep him going? Game?
So, like, I see it kind of similar to you. I see like it definitely see the intention as a positive. Like, I think that Dr. K's intention was to be like, hey, I know you might feel like you don't want to hold on, but like at least hold on this much longer. And then like maybe he was thinking like, oh well, by that point, like I will have been able to help him enough that he'll want to hold on even longer than that, or maybe completely. But I do think that the wording was just absolutely awful, and that like he's a professional, and I know that it's not therapy, quote unquote, but like I still think that given the fact that he's a psychiatrist and a professional, and that he's already dug into his like inner childhood traumas and stuff and opened him up, that it was just poor wording, that he should have known better. And when you combine that with the fact that he said you can die when you finish your game, not even like 30 seconds later he said, I believe in reincarnation. Like, yeah, you know what I mean? It's like, it's just too negligent, really. The intentions, I think, are good. I think, personally,
of course, he didn't want him to die,
Yeah, like I think that when I look at Dr. K, I think like his intent, even I don't like know what he is or isn't doing for like how genuine he is or isn't being, but it comes across to me like he has good intentions and he wants to help people, and I actually really like most of what he does. When it comes to the case of these not therapy conversation, whatever you want to call them, that's where I feel like there's a certain amount of negligence that he's opening himself up to, and that I worry after seeing the case with Byron that people don't realize just how big the consequences of that type of negligence can be. So that even if his intentions are good, the whole reason I'm doing this video in the first place is because I don't want to cancel Dr. K. I think that would actually be worse. I would be doing a disservice to the world, because I think he's doing more good than he is bad. Especially since most of the time he's not doing therapy sessions, he's talking about general concepts, and I think that's great. But what I want to open up a discussion, and I want people to stop like looking at him as like an idol that can't do any wrong and worshiping him, and I want them to see that like how important it is to recognize the potential for him to act in a flawed way, because of how dire the consequences can be, basically.
Yeah. Wait, you want him to do what?
I want other people to
Okay.
to recognize that like he is capable of acting in a flawed way, even if it's not his intention, and that like the repercussions of him acting in a flawed way in the context of these like not therapy sessions can potentially be devastating, which I think like Byron is an example of. I don't think that like Dr. K is the reason that Byron passed away. That would be, I think that's, that's way too big of a causality to be implying. But I do think that like, he was a professional, a point of authority that put some strange ideas, or like put ideas in Byron's head that like maybe it wasn't the right time for him, and that it was on Dr. K to know that, basically.
Yeah, I think the same. I mean, we can't attribute to any one cause, but certainly those, putting those two together. Oh, you can die and later or soon, and there's reincarnation, and it's not. Yeah, I think it. And then the whole thing with the loophole that's not therapy, and it just wasn't. But unlike a normal conversation, the person's also thinking, oh, this is a psychiatrist telling me. And I think it's obvious, and it's obvious to everyone, I think to Byron as well. And Byron's been at therapy, and he can probably recognize, well, this is exactly like therapy that I've been to. So then he's, oh, it's like a loophole. He gets to talk to me, here, but and I know what this is, and then trust him from that perspective. So yeah, and I agree that, and I also really liked what I saw. I saw the streams before Byron passed away, and I thought, oh, it's great that he's, having this. I guess I think I may have been concerned at the time also with some of the stuff that he was saying, like, but because Byron seemed to like him so much or enjoyed so much, it didn't really, make me too concerned. But that's besides the fact.
Do your parents, like, are they familiar with Dr. K and the talks that happened?
Yeah, I think that. I mean, my mom watches really so maybe watched almost every stream. I actually didn't ask her exactly, but maybe you should have like a interview with them too. But I basically I don't think that they're big fans, and they're not fans of the psychology of the reincarnation thing, and definitely they will not be happy about thinking about that and talking about that, and wouldn't be fans. And also with my older brother Guy, when he was just 21, but he had done like professional pilot school, which is amazing, and he got by it even though he was depressed. But he always thought, no, they let me get by. They always think these illogical things when they're depressed. And of course, they didn't let him get by. It's a professional school. He passed the tests. And then he, despite being depressed, and then he went to a psychiatrist, but off the record or something like that. I don't know, or he just talked to somebody who was a psychiatrist, and he gave him medication. And then after Guy died, the guy came to our house as part one day mourning period, and he took the medication sort of secretly from the room because he didn't want to, he didn't want the liability. So anyhow, to connect that, also my dad's dad died when my dad was 14. Like, I guess my dad's dad was having a heart attack or some kind of heart problem, and he wasn't doing that poorly, I guess, as my dad remembers. But my grandma, in a, like she was like frantic. She was trying to find someone to help, and I guess she found a doctor from the street or I don't know where, a doctor, and then the guy injected him, and then he died like right in that moment. So maybe injected him with the wrong thing. My dad's talked to some doctors about what it could be. So, from my dad's perspective, his dad died because at the hands of a doctor. My brother died at the hands of a doctor because when you take those pills, those SSRIs, you're 7 times more likely to die from suicide because it gives you just as much energy, just enough energy to do it or whatever. So, and then Byron, I wouldn't say that Dr. K is as connected to, as to it, or is at fault. It was like the perfect storm. There were so many factors, the pressure with the game and his loneliness and relationship wise, and possibly also this, but yeah, there are a lot of other factors. But the bottom line, the point I'm trying to make is, yeah, I guess my dad wouldn't be a big fan, probably, but it wouldn't be that like, okay, yeah, he killed him. It's more other things. I think my dad puts a lot of focus on the game and the financial. I think I don't get too much into it to them. It's kind of hard for them to talk about. I'm more open to talk about it, but it's harder for them to talk about, especially I think my dad. When my older brother passed away, it was like very, very hard for him for like 10, 20 years. He was basically, he's just like incapacitated from it. And with Byron, I think it's just like the same clump. So, yeah, with my parents, I think they would think basically what I'm saying. So,
right. So they would feel that it was the same sort of thing where it's like Dr. K doing both good and bad, not fully to blame, but he's also not blameless.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. As a trained psychiatrist, it was strange. I mean, you're talking about reincarnation. You say that after you make the game, you can die, and just the whole using of the loophole. I mean, it's obviously the same, so similar to therapy. I've been in therapy, and they ask you questions. I mean, yep. It's more than therapy. It's therapy on reality TV with thousands of people watching you. And what if later, you say, oh, I'm happy with what I talked about. And what if, you're not actually happy with what you talked about? Byron was a complex person. He was very open. At the same time, if something that one person says can upset you, what about something very revealing about your life? And now, you talked about it, you said it this way or that way. Maybe you're not happy with it. So it's like it's much worse than you should have much more liability than doing therapy in private. What's therapy in private? Someone's asking you, tell me about this, tell me about that, and you talk like that. In a way, it should have less liability.
Yeah, I do remember, like sometime in like June, maybe it was. I don't remember when it was exactly, but I do remember Byron tweeting out like an email that he got, and someone said like, "Kill yourself like your brother," or something like that.
Oh,
like really awful. Yeah, someone.
You got that too.
I'm gonna have to look through his Twitter to find the screenshot.
I know what you're talking about. Oh, okay, but I may have gotten confused because after he did that, then it should have been. Oh no, someone said it should have been you to the person that said something like that. But yeah, tell me. Right. So they were telling him you should kill yourself in an email?
Yeah, that like in an email. And, I mean, it's no secret that Byron was probably the most open streamer that's ever been. And like he definitely discussed these topics before Dr. K. I don't think that can be denied. Yeah. But
no, that's true.
I don't think that it had the same sort of spotlight on it that it. Like, I think before Dr. K, there wasn't as big of a spotlight on it, and it wasn't so like you had to really be a fan of him to know about it. Most people probably like didn't really know about that. They just knew about like regular Twitch stuff and whatever. And I do think that like that light that was shined on it by having those conversations and like really, what happened with Guy was kind of like the crux of most of the conversations that Dr. K was having with Byron. So I think that like it definitely did open him to like a new level of harassment, a more personalized level of harassment than he probably would have received otherwise.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, because of that stream, then people were just
Mm-hmm.
saying these awful things to him. So
Exactly.
that's just on top of the, you know, feeling of everyone's watched you and you've admitted this and that, and then there's the people actually reacting to it, not always positively. Um, so I'm sure many gave encouraging words too, but you can end up focusing just on the negative.
Yep.
You know, lots of people loved Byron, but you can focus on people can really find how to get under your skin. They love to do that, I guess. So yeah, that's another big problem, I think.
Um, Tell me what you think about this. I have a feeling that when I put out this video, one of the things that if Dr. K chooses to respond to it, one of the things he's going to say is that, if I wasn't a trained psychiatrist and I was having these conversations, would you say it was bad? And don't you think it's weird that because I'm more qualified than the average person, I'm actually less able to help people in this way than if I was less qualified, then it would have been fine in the eyes of many?
No, I mean, I think because he's a trained psychiatrist, he should have obviously not suggested things about killing yourself, such as about the game, like kill yourself after the game and the reincarnation, and instead of focusing on things that seem to me, at least, more productive. And I mean, not just me, I guess. If you look at, there are other things like behavioral, cognitive behavioral therapy and so on. That you think this, then maybe you should change the way you think about that. Like could have taken that avenue, and maybe it was more effective. As a trained psychologist, he would he sort of expected it to, perform better than someone that's just randomly, I'm talked to him, I did the best I could, what can I do? I thought talking about reincarnation is a good thing to suicidal people. Like, obviously he has more responsibility. So it's fine that okay, so he's saying, is he allowed to talk to people? Basically, I guess that's the defense. Is like, are you allowed to talk to people?
Hmm.
Sure, you're allowed to talk to people. Okay, so let's say yeah, I want to talk to you because I want to proselytize about, I want to push Buddhism and I want to push like reincarnation right now and tell you how great it is, even though it's not like really a good thing to tell suicidal people. And by the way, I'm a trained psychiatrist, and this is very much like therapy, as you probably know, but we're going to say it's not like therapy. And now we're doing the AOE, I'm AOE helping people. So I'm like helping you right now because this is AOE helping people. I mean, that's the whole point of the stream. So whether it's therapy or it's not therapy, the point of this is to help you, and I know how to help you. That's why we're having this conversation. And so I'm trained, and so even though I'm not doing the exact same things I'm doing as I would be doing therapy, I'm doing something because that's the whole point of the stream, is to help you, right? So so there's that. Or what do you think you would say in response?
I'm not sure. Like, the thing is that I'm definitely, quite far from being a professional on this matter. To me, it seems like it brings up the question of where is the line? Like, at what point does it become therapy and not a conversation? Because I know that he's quite careful with his wording when it comes to diagnosing. He's very careful to say, like, you might have this, or like, it could be possible that this is a thing, you have this, but he will never say you have this. He's like, he's very careful. So I feel like he would probably say, like, well, I'm not diagnosing anyone, so it's not therapy. But then, and he would also probably say, I don't force anyone to go any deeper than they themselves want to. If they're uncomfortable, they're always ready to stop. But at the same time, like I know it's like a type of psychoanalytical therapy where you go into like childhood traumas and you try and like get
Obviously,
yeah.
I think that if you have any objective person from the side looking, oh, it's a, so wait a minute, so this is a psychiatrist talking to someone who's troubled, and this is exactly the conversation that they've, yeah, I've been to therapy. Maybe you have. I mean, you can look it up. Like, there's jokes about that they don't do anything. They just ask you some questions. You start talking. So, what constitutes therapy? I'm not sure. As far as diagnosis is concerned, okay, a therapist doesn't necessarily diagnose you, right? I mean, he's trying to come up with a diagnosis, and you say it might be that you have this. I'm not sure that you have to have a diagnosis in order to prescribe, but he wasn't prescribing yet. That the fact that he hasn't yet come up with a diagnosis doesn't mean that it's not therapy. You can have therapy and you just haven't come up with a diagnosis yet.
Right.
Or the fact that he's not trying to come up with a diagnosis doesn't mean it's not therapy either. It's like, okay, well, I'm first checking it out and I'm not trying to diagnose. Okay, it doesn't trying to diagnose, so it's not therapy. All right, fine. But the methods that you're doing, if you were trying to diagnose, are exactly the same thing. Um, okay, I guess that's one thing. So you were saying you said two things. He's not diagnosing. It's not therapy, and the other one was
Like his defenses. What was it? That he's not diagnosing, and I don't remember what I said. um I guess he would say like, at what point is it therapy if I'm just talking?
oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, the whole point of his show is like it's therapy with Dr. K. That's not therapy. Otherwise, what? Why? Talking about what? What? Talking about auto mechanics? What specialty is the conversation about? He's not talking about gaming. He's not talking about any particular topic. He's talking about people's problems and digging into them, which is psychoanalysis basically does that, right? It's like digging into people's issues, having them talk about it, and what else is it?
Hmm. Yeah, I do.
Um,
I know he will like. He'll suggest people that he talks to go see a therapist. I think is good, but of course, there's no guarantee that they actually will do that. Um. Yeah, I don't know. It's such a tricky. I'm trying to get an interview with a psychiatrist to talk about this because I think that like a professional opinion on the matter is definitely very important. But I have this like sort of inner conflict where it's on one hand, like clearly this is very risky and potentially very problematic, and on the other hand, I feel like mental health is an area that we have like a lot of work to do in, and that like he's undoubtedly advancing the meta, if you want, whatever, how you want to put it, regarding mental health therapy and all that stuff. That's kind of why I like his non-therapy streams, because I think that he's still achieving that same goal, except now it's not like this situation where you have like this blurred line of whether or not it's therapy, and it's not like on a stage for everyone to see, which is just weird in general for a lot of reasons, and like we said earlier, like can open people up to like very targeted harassment. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to think. So I'm opening up this dialogue about what Dr. K does. What are the main points that I want people to think about? Not that I'm providing an answer to, but I'm saying, hey, let's question this.
yeah, I got you. Definitely. Yeah, I don't know, and I don't mean to be too harsh.
Mm-hmm.
Although I lost my brother, and he didn't save him, and there definitely did things that are very questionable, like all those things we mentioned. I'm not blaming him. I mean, he's not God,
Hmm.
but I wouldn't treat him as a god for sure after this. I mean, if you're looking for him for, oh, he's fixes everybody. Oh yeah, I mean, look at the result. And so people should definitely not treat him like a god. And I don't mean to like attack him too much, and I think he has a good heart. I can't tell. Yeah, some of the things I think are a little like I don't know, overexpressed. I think when he was crying afterwards, but who knows? Everyone
Right.
expresses things differently, and but I don't mean to blame him for too much, but I definitely think that people should question. I mean, that's just people now in general. They're just so they what is it when you make someone a saint? They kind of
Put on a
iconize or whatever.
pedestal or something.
Yeah, idolize. Yeah, put on a pedestal. People, so they're like looking for people to put on a pedestal, almost like they don't have. I'm not religious, but I guess it's interesting to think about now that society has become less religious. People have an ingrained need of religion and saints and leaders and sort of godly deities, demigods and stuff like that. And they're like looking for people to put on that. And some of the sort of narratives in society today are like religious concepts like original sin, like if you're a white guy or whatever. And I mean, I'm white skinned, but my grandparents were in Europe getting killed in the Holocaust.
Same. Yep.
While there was slavery. How am I connected to slavery? Not at all. But you wouldn't see that in the street, so I'm just a white guy, right? Just a white straight guy or whatever, and then somehow I'm guilty of whatever if you just view that. So it's kind of like, and in a majority white country, it's kind of like, original sin, the original sin of what, being white. So it's like anyway, it's like racism reverse. It's like racism, it's just all 1984 Orwellian stuff.
Yeah.
Like people are saying anti-racism is actually this equity thing is actually racism, but whatever. Because you can't. I mean, I don't want to get it too much into that, but I'm just saying people are like
they're filling a void.
Yeah, just what's that?
They're filling a void.
They're filling a void from religion, and so it's kind of like they feel guilty. It's kind of so that's where the original sin concept I was talking about, and it's like they need to like punish themselves for something. And this gets into another thing. It's like Byron was saying how I heard him on a stream saying he thinks he has impersonator syndrome. I mean, he was like the realist person. What's that?
Imposter syndrome.
Yes, sorry, imposter syndrome. And he was like the realist person. If he has imposter syndrome, imagine what other people have, right? So I think that people overdo, like when you just consider that you have so many problems, and you do have problems, but you're just focusing on problems and label things. You could make them a bigger deal than they are. Like maybe he felt. I mean, I can understand what he's saying, but at the same time, it's kind of normal. It's called, let's say there's a hot girl, whatever you want to talk to, and you just don't feel that you deserve that, right? So I mean, it's a normal thing. It's called like working on your inner game or whatever. It's normal. It's not like you're an imposter syndrome. Your self-confidence doesn't reflect that you think that is your level. I mean, that's normal. Every person feels that. And when I told him once that, he thinks that maybe thought that I'm outgoing or whatever, and maybe confident sometimes, I was like, I often feel like I'm weirded out by, I'm not sure, did I say the right thing or not? I like think about a lot. I'm, whatever, all the same things that, that I think sometimes. Maybe some people don't, but many, many people feel, not sure of themselves a lot of times. And just sort of overclassify that as a problem, the diagnosis. And also, by the way, I mean, it's just interesting. Why is autism up so much? Like, are people that much more autistic, or we're either overdiagnosing it, which is a problem, I mean, or we're properly diagnosed. But how could so many people be, screwed up? It's like 1 out of 20 boys now, and every year it's growing exponentially. Like it was 1 in 10,000 in the 1970s or 80s. Now it's 1 out of 20 boys has autism or on the spectrum, and I guess either either we really are getting more and more screwed up, and or we're overdiagnosing things, which is also a problem. Because what do I mean by overdiagnosing? Is that I mean, how could it be that 1 in 20 people are sort of not cut out for society to such a degree that they have like this disorder, right? They have features, that doesn't, so then it's not disorder necessarily. Maybe they have features. Maybe I saw a nice way of explaining it. Maybe putting, boys in a chair for 10 hours a day and teaching them, boring things or whatever. Maybe it's normal for them to not pay attention the whole time because that's not natural. Just like for kids to sit 10 hours a day or whatever in a chair and just listen to someone writing on the chalkboard. So I think that I had the general feeling that Byron would buy into some societal things that are not healthy. And because, well, I didn't talk to him that often. When I was in person, sometimes we would argue about other things. And then he was closed off and sensitive maybe about talking to some things, but we wouldn't get into that talk. And sometimes I could get too much into it. I know. But I know that my way of thinking of it would have been, if he would have been more antisocial in a different sense, in the sense of not believing so much of societal's norms, then I feel like he would have been better off. But the things that the kind of it wasn't antisocial, but I mean the kinds of issues that he had with society were like self-reflective instead of externally, hey, society is screwed up. Like, what are these people talking about?
I think he was
this is normal.
Too critical of himself without being critical enough of his environment.
Exactly.
In the context, like, so bringing it back to Dr. K, are you, correct me if I'm, wrong here, but are you saying that you think that one potential flaw of what Dr. K does is that he gets people too focused on the lens of mental health, and that as a result they might be actually making things worse for themselves because they're too focused in one area?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the particular path, and I should have watched all of them over again and to have more feedback, but it was kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of hard pulling that Band-Aid off again watching. But I mean, there's so many different directions that you could go. Like I do some, personal development just in the sense of like, oh, how could I, just be better, feel better, do whatever. And there's so many great directions to go in and to give people sort of tasks in a way, like not tasks like chores, but if you work on that, like just recently, I noticed when you don't get triggered about something, because I thought, oh, it's kind of good to get triggered in a way because you sort of have that, oh, I'm going to show you, like I'm building some products and businesses and stuff. And if someone says, oh, you won't be able to do this, like the Michael Jordan thing, like, or whoever else, I'm going to show them that I can do it. And I have enough of that. I don't maybe need any more. I mean, not that bad with it, but I have enough of that like feeling. And so then I let myself get into that. Like if someone says like, oh, you won't get this by that time. And I sort of got an argument with them, whatever. And the different approach I just realized, just heard recently from different direction, but like, YouTube stuff you can hear. And is when you don't get triggered, then you get this elation, feeling that you're like, oh, wow, like I didn't have to, it's almost like you went to the gym or whatever it is, you did the right thing, you delayed gratification or whatever it is, you did something good and you get this, dopamine or whatever it is, or you get like a good feeling from having done the right thing. And I mean, there's just a lot of things like that, seem, but, maybe it wouldn't help. I guess when someone's clinically depressed, they have different things that can help them. But I think that that's more framing. Like when maybe I would sometimes tell Byron some things like that, and you have to not um, not make light, but you have to not make it seem so easy. Like, oh, just do this and that. Sometimes someone can make something look easy because they think, oh, it's not hard, just you can do it. But there's a different way of framing it, but the methods may be the same. Go out, exercise, see the sun, talk to people. It's like normal, it's healthy. That's another thing, obviously with the lockdowns. I mean, one of the worst things that mankind has ever come up with, right, is solitary confinement. It's like when you're in prison, people put you in solitary confinement. It's like the worst possible punishment you can do without physically torturing someone, like putting them in hot oil. It's like solitary confinement. And people are in solitary confinement. You have your stream, but basically no one around. You go outside, it's like dead everywhere. You feel like you're in, one of those movies with Will Smith, after the virus.
Yeah.
Yeah. So weird. You're just by yourself. It's all lonely. And yeah, obviously those things, talk about that. Like, don't worry, it'll come back. Life will resume. Remember when look at yourself there. Here you are traveling. Look how you're laughing. You want to tell me that was fake? Why are you laughing at that moment? Okay, so you like doing that. Wow, you remember how you like doing that. I mean, what's the, that doesn't seem that hard to me. It's like, why wasn't that more of the conversation?
So in that sense, you're saying that Dr. K should have done more from his position.
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of other avenues that he should have gone down. Maybe you can refresh me a little bit, because I kind of have the flashes in my head of a few of the key moments, like when he was reading my dad's book about how my brother passed away. And it was, he was reading the book. He was reading from that book how the guy in the bone box, the detective, lost his son. Right. So my dad's obviously has autobiographical elements. How the detective lost his son, and how it was a very strong moment in the therapy sessions, and how his world was just over. Like he's like living dead. Like people are walking by him and they're just going on their merry way. And then while his son is dead and while he's dead, living dead. And when I first read my dad's book saying that, I remember, crying, and just, myself when I was 16. And then seeing Byron read that on stream and crying and relaying the environment that he grew up in, that I was saying that glorified someone who's dead, my brother. And so if you want to get the attention of your father, and my dad loved Byron, but and my dad loves me too, but I know that he loved my older brother the most. It was his first son, and just he was so destroyed when Guy passed away. And Byron just growing up in that environment where his dad's not capable of doing anything because he's so destroyed over his older brother that's gone. So it gave him, I think, this is how to get attention in a way. And when he was young, he would threaten a lot, like, oh, I'm going to kill myself. Like it was this nuclear option, and sometimes he was just like 10 years younger than me, small, but then he was scary. Sometimes he would just go nuts, like, and he would just, I don't know what he can do. Like he could grab a knife and stab you. So, and you totally don't get that later on in the stream. And maybe it was me bringing out of it. I know brothers fight. And my dad said, oh, well, Guy had a calming effect on Byron. I don't know that that's always true either. I remember sometimes they had the things too. And I think Guy had my calming effect too sometimes, but sometimes we'd fight. And I was also a kid. You I was, my brother passed away. I was 15, and Byron was, 5. And so I remember that time I came back. My friend Barack was visiting from Israel, and he wanted me to show him around and everything. And he kept bugging me because he didn't know what's going on. He's like, "Oh, let's go here, let's go there," and I knew that that guy wasn't doing well, and so I would try to spend time with him. And then, but it was like, oh, it's summer, things are happening. I'm young, I'm a kid, and like not taking things as seriously as, and that was my regret later. And then sort of knowing that something's happening, and then not acting on it. Um, yeah, in the same time, what can you do really?
Yeah.
They can. Yeah. So, but Byron growing up in that kind of household where there was, so much love directed at Guy. So, so he would throw the nuclear option. He had a lot. But later on, he was chill and he wouldn't be like that. And unless he was fighting with me sometimes, even about dumb stuff. Sometimes, but sometimes we had a great relationship, and we, would play together, watch things together, and so on. And he also, we also lived together in Marina Del Rey for like a year, and we had even a studio apartment, and he just like lived together. And there we streamed in the beginning, his first streams before. That's when he says, "Oh, Gary always had ideas before they happen or whatever." Because before Twitch happened, we basically had like Twitch. I mean, we had 2 screens, and we had like 3,000 viewers, which was not bad. And this was, I think 2011 or 2009 or 2011. I don't know. And but we didn't know how to monetize it, so Byron just didn't want to. We had like some ad in the middle or whatever, and Byron didn't want to do it so much if it wasn't, because it was kind of killing his strategies. People could see, and he wasn't used to the pressure yet of people doing it. And later on, he came up with, I guess, the donation button. That's what I understand. Came up with it later when it was Twitch. But anyway, we lived together, Marina Del Rey, and it was, it was fun. And then I just, in 2000 financial crash, 2007, 8, the market was terrible, and so I took off, traveling, and I always wanted to travel the world and stuff. And I didn't think about it at the time, but Byron said to about Guy that he sort of abandoned us or something like that. But I mean, Dr. K talked about him about abandonment issues. I remember them saying, but who was it about? Because Guy didn't abandon Byron so much because it wasn't like maybe he felt. I don't think he necessarily felt that way. It's not like his father or his mother, right? If anything, I would feel like maybe I abandoned him. I thought in a way, but I wasn't his father or his mother either. I went to go traveling, and at the time, he didn't really express any, "Oh, well, I'm sad you're going," or whatever. And I don't think he was in particular. He was always busy watching he was always, I could barely talk to him. If I could hang out with him more, I probably wouldn't have even gone. I liked hanging out with him. But I wish he would have come with me. I always told him, like, let's go. He didn't like that. No, I hate traveling. I don't even like going to the beach. I don't like when sand gets in my feet, or toes, or whatever. Like, I hate being out. No, I just want to play video games. Leave me alone. Like, I don't want to go anywhere. Stuff like that. But because I had been traveling for like 10 years, and so, also not Byron, but I also felt like I abandoned my parents in a way too. They have their own life, their own friends and stuff. Like, I got living my life, and I would talk to them still. But I remember my dad showed this telescope that we have here. And when I was a kid, I was like 9 years old, I got it. And but I worked in my dad's office, and I earned half the money, and I got the telescope. We would go out, take it outside and see it. And my dad posted a picture once and said, abandoned. Because I think he meant just the telescope, because it was just laying there collecting dust. But at that moment, I think maybe it was 5 or 10 years ago, I saw it, and I'm like, oh, like, I felt like I abandoned, because we used to do that together, me and my dad. But they never gave any. like, oh, you should come back. I don't know. They're just easygoing in a way, but I'm getting off topic.
In regards to, well, first of all, I'm just gonna say that like I I'm no professional, but I don't think that you should blame yourself in terms of abandoning anyone. You're everyone's entitled to their own life and like still remained a part of your family's life even though you were traveling. So I wouldn't say that you abandoned anyone. Of course, I like don't know you personally. This is the first time we've spoken, and I'm not a professional. So I mean that aside, but I think that when Dr. K was talking about abandonment, I think that he was looking at it more from this lens of like, well, after Guy passed away, like the home life and the family life that Byron knew up until that point left him. Everything changed, and it wasn't the same thing anymore that he was going home to, that he was living with. Like his life was abandoned, so to speak. You know, but I could be wrong. I also have to. I haven't finished rewatching.
Yeah, me too. I gotta watch it. Again, maybe I would love to talk to you again about it, but we already did such a long interview. But I want to talk to you about. But they did definitely focus on it. On the other hand, Byron was only 5 or 6, and I of course it can affect you so much. But there was another thing also. Is Guy was away for a year. When he was 17, he went to Israel to an American school there, and that, it made it a little bit easier on me in a way. I guess I hadn't seen Guy for like a year before he came back here. Then he was here, but I hadn't been seeing him. He was kind of far away, even though we grew up together and everything, but I hadn't seen him too much, for a long time. And with Byron, I hadn't seen him. Once in a while we talked, but I mean, it used to be I used to come home every weekend, even from UCSB, because Byron would cry when I'd leave, and he loved it when I came back. So I would come back every weekend, like drive 90 miles, back and forth, to hang out with him. So we were very close until until he got into Asheron's Call. But even then we would still, until he started getting into gaming. Then it was I seemed less. He would basically play, and I would like sit next and sort of watch, like sit next to him, like watch him kick ass, and then sometimes he'd look over at my screen, and I just wanted to be with him. But he would still cry when I left, which is weird. So anyway, I would just come back and see him all the time. So it wasn't till later that I would say like I wasn't there for him. I mean, I wasn't there for him. I was far away, but it was also his choice. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that I don't know, that sounds very complicated, but in the same way that I wouldn't blame Dr. K for what happened, like definitely wouldn't blame you. Like I think that I would blame, if I was gonna pick one between you and Dr. K to blame, it would be Dr. K, but I wouldn't blame either of you.
Yeah.
It's a very complicated thing, and
there's nothing, and I guess who know. I mean, Byron wasn't seeking my. I would reach out to him all the time. He would respond to me. Maybe I needed to try it in a different way. Again, I didn't think to face. I would love to talk to him. I had one of the greatest times of my life was when he, because we fought a little bit before for like a year or two, and then he called me on FaceTime out of the blue, and that was the best, like one of the best moments. And he was so happy, and he showed me how his apartment's next to Kanye West's, or whatever, in the next building, not next to, but next to this building. And I guess he was in a good mood, so he wanted to show me that he's in a good mood. And he had Talbadar over, and look, I'm friends, and I'm doing well, and I was, so happy. Yeah. I don't know what I want to say. So.
That's
But yeah,
fine.
I wanna go back and watch those. And if you want, I would love to talk to you again, and
Sure,
we'll
yeah.
dig into things more. And I almost feel bad. I don't want to say I think Dr. K is a nice guy. I think people can sometimes. I mean, what he's doing is definitely a good cause, right? He's trying to help people. I think people could get carried away with what they're doing and sort of cover up the bad aspects
Yeah.
because unintentionally in a way because people have their own game and goal in life, and it's good and to have goals, but you sort of cover up certain like details because you're on your mission, and there are much worse things that people do on their mission and trying to help the world. I won't get into it, but then what Dr. K is doing, he's doing a legitimately nice, good thing, therapy with people. But because of the format of it, where he needs to get more of a following, and because of the monetization also involved in that, and because he doesn't need the people anymore afterwards, because he gets the stream. Legitimately, you could say, well, yeah, I'm trying to AoE everybody, so I don't have to talk to this person as much anymore. And I'm not going to talk to this lowly person because they don't have a stream. And you could say, that's fine. I mean, it's normal because, I mean, if you want to go to the best doctor, you typically have to pay a lot of money too. And sometimes they'll have a certain amount of time where they give private hours. And he said, and by the way, he does give a lot of free time to a lot of people. But a lot of his time is dedicated to getting the next bigger streamer and so on, and that kicks on a life of its own. And the format of the therapy or non-therapy sessions could have been better, I think, definitely. I mean, there's infinite possibilities in the world. I think that in many different parallel universes, there's many things I could have done to make Byron a lot still alive. I think there's many things that Dr. K could have done, and there's many things that a lot of people could have done. There's infinite possibilities of how things could have played out, and maybe most of them have the situation we're in, But maybe there's a few things that we could have done differently that would have been good enough.
Hmm.
Who knows? This is not one of them.
Right.
And And I definitely think you can easily point to many things that he could have done better, or at least it seems that way, or not as bad. Like, don't say that. Don't bring up that. He's just human. He's just human, and I don't blame him. He's just human. And so I didn't mean I came off in the beginning a little bit, maybe started off with the negatives because I felt like the framing of this conversation is people do idolize him, maybe too much. Let's see why that might not be the best approach. And so I started off a little bit, negative at it. Hope it doesn't come off overly so. We're all just people, but it's important. It needed to be said. And so, yeah, we said it.
No, I think that that was well said. I don't think that you come off. I think that the criticisms were necessary for this conversation because to get to the conclusion of what you're saying now, which is that he's just human. You have to be human means he has to be worthy of criticism. So that's why those criticisms are just as important. And like this is sort of the conclusion that I want to go for, which is like he is just human. He has good intentions, but because no one's perfect, we need to talk about this. And I think that if anything, good can come from this situation, it's that he improves at what he's doing in terms of he gets better at not saying the things he shouldn't say, and he gets better at recognizing when there are things he should be saying that he failed to in the past, basically.
Yeah, I guess that's the correct way to look at it from a constructive point of view. Like, I'm a little bit cynical sometimes, and I don't know how to read people, and that could make me too like not constructive enough. Like, say like, oh, almost like seek punishment or something like that. But I mean, not just for him, for myself, for many people. I don't know, just for a lot of different scenarios. But that's not healthy, I guess, and that's not realistic either, probably, and just not necessary. Maybe. I mean, let's be constructive, and the constructive thing is, like you said, there's certain things you shouldn't say, and there's more other pathways that you should probably take. Maybe some more methods that are likely to cause someone to, feel better, rather than only like philosophical things that are really interesting. That if I'm, like get on shrooms and talk about them. Oh, that's very interesting, but is that likely to cause someone harm or help them? So yeah,
Yeah,
just be more practical.
I totally agree. Yes, if you so you said that you wanted to talk to me again in the future, like totally down. In terms of like the actual video itself, I don't even have a script finished yet. I've just barely started. I've kind of mostly just been in the research phase, so I'm not going to be done anytime soon. So, if you want to get back to me in a couple of weeks or something, like I'm absolutely down. You can
Sounds
sort
great.
of
Yeah.
dictate the pace of that conversation, since I've already like exhausted the questions that I've thought up. But yeah, I just
Okay.
want to
Well,
thank you for sitting down with me. I really appreciate this. I think that I think it's very important for people to hear your perspective, and I think that it does say a lot that the people closest to Byron feel this way about how things went down. It's not just your parents. It's Jenna. It's Jackie. It's Blue. So I really appreciate you doing this.
thank you actually for doing this. I mean, we're the family. We of course should do it or will do it, and it's so great that you did that. It's hard for me to just watch so much of this stuff. It's not going to bring him back. It's but you're and just thinking about it too much as like I don't know. I kind of believe that in the future maybe people could be brought back, like with technology, basically through our memories and singularity and all that stuff, like sort of like create our heaven of our own design. But maybe 30 years from now or whatever it is. But until then, it just hurts to just keep thinking about things. And on the other hand, it's good to just enjoy, not be greedy or whatever. Just enjoy the great moments and memories that we do have, and the things we did learn from Byron. And
Yeah, absolutely. I do believe
uh,
in the idea that like sort of like the past is eternal. Like it can't be taken. The memories, like they.
especially since it's all online, since it's he's so much online that
Mm-hmm.
his whole life. Sorry, go ahead. I cut you off.
Yeah, no, just the idea that like the moments that you shared together and all this stuff, like that can't be taken away. That's forever. So I do believe that's like a worthwhile thing to like remember in times that are difficult.
Just wish I had more of those moments too, and in later of his life. But you have what you have. There are
Exactly.
a lot of things, a lot of times. But also, there's so much of his stream that I haven't seen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's so many hours.
Oh yeah.
I guess some people would always see them as they happen. But I probably spent I don't know, probably spent months just looking at them. So, but I do want to go over Dr. K's. That's important to see those again. And yeah, if you're open to it, let's talk about it. And my parents, I don't even know if they've seen it. My dad is especially hard on him watching any of that.
Yeah.
But maybe he'll be able to see it, and my mom will be able to watch it. So I'll watch with them, and we can together think about it too, and I'll talk to you. I'll represent what they're thinking about if they're not on the stream
Sure.
themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, but I definitely don't want to like put any pressure on them to come talk, because I know that how difficult to talk about stuff like this.
Yeah, but it's good to it's good to see it. Well, maybe my dad doesn't have to see it, but yeah. Well, we'll see. I'll. Don't worry. I won't pressure them. But I do want to see it, and I would like them to see it so that we can think about it together.
Mm-hmm.